All right, welcome everyone. This is our third of 3 sessions in our New to Vermont lunch series. I am going to just do a quick Zoom housekeeping. We're currently in Zoom meeting, so as an attendee, please keep yourself muted so there's no background noise interrupting our panelists. You can raise your hand as well as use the chat box. Please, for questions for specific panelists or the panel as a whole, please put them in the chat. We have staff on hand that are collecting those, and if it's pertinent to what's being talked about at the moment, we'll have one of them interject the question. If not, we'll save sort of the general questions for the end of the session. I will just hand it over to Peter Case, or Fish as I like to call him, and many people do, I assume. And happy to have you here to run this awesome panel. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. This is something that I've often tried to sort out myself, but let's just start by welcoming everybody to the third and final session. This one is entitled Vermont Lunch Series, entitled How New People Generate New Opportunities for Our Community. Again, as Sarah said, my name is Peter Case. I'm also known as Fish of Fishhook Communications. I'm located in Brattleboro, Vermont, and I'll be your host today. I want to take a moment to thank our lunch series sponsors, Green Mountain Power and the Vermont Electric Power Company. Before we get started, a little teaser about what's coming up in the next program. I hope you were able to attend the session just before, called Small Scale Changes to Strengthen Our Town's Session. All sessions are being recorded, so if you missed it, you can watch it later. Next up at 2 o'clock is the summit's final keynote speaker, Majora Carter, a social enterprise pioneer of the Majora Carter Group. She'll be presenting on community as corporation, talent retention, and low status in America. It's should miss it. It sounds like it'll be a good one. In today's session, we're going to focus on the newcomers and returners that are helping our communities thrive. From childcare to food systems, cultural organizations to startups, these folks are playing a vital role in every aspect of this region's community. We'll hear from local leaders who organizations and businesses are being recharged by our new neighbors. And as we frame today's discussion, I think we should think about our current situation as being currently a target-rich environment for resources. With the influx of people that have abruptly moved to our area, they bring resources with them, and those resources can be leveraged for some Green Mountain growth, for lack of a better term. But of course, change is good, right up until it happens. But that comes to us and having to kind of reframe our muscle memory to resist things and kind of open up to the suggestion and take our current situation and make it positive. There are 2 ways to adapt when we view our communities. We can take the plight of say Burlington, Vermont, that has grown, or Flint, Michigan, which, as we know, has been well storied as a community that has just faltered when handed and changed. With that, we've got a really cool panel group. Bill Anton from the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union. We'll be talking about schools with him. Gretchen Haverluck from the town of Wilmington. We'll be talking municipalities. And Matt Harrington, who is from the Southwestern Vermont Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to be talking about business. So welcome all. And why don't we start the whole thing with Bill on schools? What are we looking forward to with all the new folks that are moving into the area?
Well, school is a great entry point for new people because it's an opportunity for them to immediately have some connective tissue to the community. So it's kind of like the beginning of school. When people come back to school, there's that excitement, there's that anticipation. And when you have new people coming, they get to participate in that and they get to affect how that feels. So for this past year, it was really exciting. In one of our particular communities, the surrounding Mount Snow, in the Dover community, we had over 29 new students. And that represented about a 13% year-over-year growth. That represented a little less than 24 new families And it brought a real influx, a real excitement to how things operate in a school and how things operate in a community, a lot of questions, but really just excitement because people took the effort to move here. And so they were very curious about how things ran. So we love having new people.
Yeah, I think that the school, as you said, is that's the easy point of entry to kind of find out what's going on around, and of course the maybe the next point of entry might be your chamber of commerces and your businesses and how those roll out. I also want to say that as we're talking, if anybody does have a question, please do put it in the chat, and we'll get that and we'll try to answer it and direct that to whoever. But Matt, why don't you talk a little bit about what you've seen in this past year?
Sure, and thanks Peter, and thanks BDCC for hosting today and the last 3 days. A really terrific conference, state of the art for sure. We were one of the first of maybe 2 or 3 organizations throughout the state that hopped on to the State of State program. Commissioner Knight originally rolled that out a couple years ago. And as a pilot, we even joked and called it a pilot of a pilot. It was so, just trying to do it in midair, in mid-flight, and making sure that, we would have people interested in Vermont and try and come out to Vermont for a weekend and give it a test drive. And along that path, we'd connect them with schools like Bill, with employers, with housing, with anything else that would really be a hurdle for them to move to Vermont. And we just wanted to clear the pathway for them if they were ever interested. It was a very high touch weekend. And unfortunately, we had to pivot that away in COVID, but we've still been hopping on digital calls monthly, and our partners have grown in the state. So I think where we started with 4 communities doing this pilot, it now has grown to 6 or 8 communities, and I believe the administration's thought is to increase it even more. So that's exciting, and eventually we'll get back to weekends. But the ones here in at least Bennington County that we've seen really latching on to a program like State of Stay, and just really in general any new Vermonters, is obviously the health system and healthcare. Huge deficit in their numbers that they need, whether that be nurses, doctors, practitioners, or even the maintenance crew that makes the hospital work or makes the home care work. So they've been really needing new people and seeing new people. I was talking to the hospital a couple weeks ago, and the difference from 3 years ago of them trying to attract doctors to move to Vermont, and now COVID and the reputation Vermont has gained due to the response to COVID, they've said it's a 180 now. Now they have to stop doctors from applying. They have so many doctors applying, which is really encouraging. Also manufacturing and light manufacturing, education. We see that a lot in need of new Vermonters, and now being nicely paired with the idea that new Vermonters are readily moving here. And so teachers and special education especially is needing new people. And then entrepreneurs, people that just want to move and latch on to the Vermont brand and start their own small business. So those are some of the huge buckets that we see are being filled by new Vermonters.
So, and with that, as I said, I think if the natural flow, at least as far as this panel is concerned, if you have a kid in the school system, I think the natural flow is to go from school to business to municipality. But if you're dealing with somebody who's just moving to the area who don't have any kids, it might actually kind of flow in the opposite direction. So, Gretchen, would you agree with that or not, as far as the municipal level?
Yeah, probably it would go in the other direction, that, they would be contacting the municipality for assistance in opening a new business. And I think that's what newcomers have really brought here, is the potential of new businesses opening up, which is great. Of course, Wilmington is in a much more resort community, with Mount Snow and the Hermitage Club being so close to us in our own town. And, of course, it's important for you all to understand that, our population is about 1,900 people. And, with our second homeowners, when they move in, our population jumps to almost 6,000, because, 62% of our grand list are second homeowners. So these are really important people to us. And, did they really move here, or are they just using their second homes as a safe haven because Vermont was so safe? So, and I just think that, these newcomers bring a lot of opportunity to us as well for, use in, volunteering for, a planning commission board or a development review board or the recreation committee, those types of things. And, and bringing education and training to them is really crucial, as well as to our, what I like to call our fossils, which is the older people or the current residents. So it's always good for new opportunity there. So.
Sure. I think when new people come in, they bring in new ideas, and let's face it, sometimes our communities can be a little resistant to that change, but sometimes taking a look at a better way to do things is always worth just taking a good hard look at. And I know, and I've always joked around, and I said it as that we opened up, that change is good right up until it happens. Well, it's happening, and I don't think that there's going to be anything that we can do to stop it. I know that I've had conversations with at least a dozen new residents who just welcome all the opportunity that Vermont has to offer, and really just want to make a positive impact on the communities in which they reside. And however they can do that with getting involved in local government or on committees, and or the school board. Is anybody else sort of seeing that kind of thing? I mean, let's look at it at a school level. Is there more interest in being involved in booster clubs and things like that?
Yeah, well, with the advent of the use of Zoom, I think it made it really easy for newcomers to participate because the communication would come from the school about, PTA meetings or board meetings or planning for field trips, all happening through Zoom. And so it's much easier to pop on at home and get to know people. It doesn't take a lot of energy to do that. So I think Zoom has been very, very helpful. So oddly enough, even though they're not in person a lot, and even though they're dropping off their kids and not interacting at school, Zoom has actually created a portal for people to get to participate even more deeply than they could have 2 years ago.
Right.
So I think people come and they're just curious. I think you just said, Peter, that they would like to participate and make their communities better, but they're just curious about how things operate here in Vermont, right? They might have read about it, they might have imagined it, but then once they're here, if it's easy to participate, then they ask good questions and they really challenge the norm, which is cool.
Yeah, challenging the norm is kind of what it's all about. That's the only way that we grow and that we learn. Matt, have you seen a spike at all in chamber memberships or people who want to get involved in chamber events and things like that?
Yeah, along the lines of new businesses. I mean, we've just seen so much growth with Bennington in general, Manchester too, but Bennington, I think of the $60 million Putnam project and all the kind of the catalytic things that have happened around it. New breweries, I think we've opened up 2 or 3 new breweries, a new distillery is opening up. So that, whether that's new Vermonters, old Vermonters, a little bit of each, it's been really exciting to see. I wanted to get back to, I think, Peter, you touched a little bit of it, and even Bill, the number one challenge that I think we often talk about in stay-to-stay meetings is the idea that we can bring people here. And that was even before COVID. Now COVID, Vermont has this national brand. So people are knocking at the door. And as soon as, the governor says Vermont's open July 4th and you don't have to wear masks, that volume is going to only increase. The challenge we run into is making sure that Vermont is welcoming from the inside out. And we often in our internal stay meetings with the team members around the state say, look, we can put the lipstick on, we can roll out the red carpet for a weekend. It's when they move here that we see, just as change does. I mean, you've talked a lot about it, Peter. The change is just hard for us, and it's supposed to be hard, right? But I think The challenge I would put out to anybody watching right now is, what are you doing today? What are you doing in your organization or in your community or in your volunteer role to just say, hey, let's be a little bit more welcoming. Let's be a little bit more inclusive. Let's challenge some of the parochial things we've done in the past to maybe, just maybe, allow that new person from Boston, New York City, the Hudson Valley to try something new. So.
Right. And I've said this at least 1,000 times during COVID, that as everything was shutting down and people were flocking here, that that we sort of need to calm down a little bit, because everybody is just trying to fix the plane while it's in flight. This whole thing, like changing a tire on a moving car. It was very difficult to sort out, and I know that and Gretchen can probably speak to this even a little bit better, but I know that people were getting mad when they would see a New York plate in here, and forgetting that that person may have already been a community member and may have owned a second home here for 20 years, and they're paying their taxes, and they have the right to escape to some freedom. Gretchen, can you speak to that mindset at all?
Yeah, actually, you didn't even need a New York plate. I had a skybox on my Beamer, and I got road raged by someone I actually knew. And when I confronted that person, we had a really healthy discussion about that. What about, like, those people really kind of need to be taking a look in the mirror. And, are they following the CDC guidelines themselves? I don't think so. I think it's a combination. And, these people just got really enraged by, out of state plates, being at Shaw's and people being accosted. There was actually someone went around and put sticky notes on the doors in Chimney Hill, which is a very large second homeowner project. With housing, and they were sticking sticky notes on doors, go home. You look at the town of Stratton, I think, put on their town meeting handbook, like, don't change, you came here for a reason, don't change, like what we're trying to do. And, it's just really important to not be judging people that are moving here. I mean, it's opening up an opportunity for all of us to learn and be more understanding. I learned this as a child. I was born and raised here. My father was a contractor, and, it was really important that, these second homeowners, these people coming here, were the people that were putting bread and butter. Well, we have more than bread and butter, but giving my father a living wage so that we could be here, so I could, get off the bus and go skiing for a couple of runs after school, or, like, how lucky was I? So I learned really young that, these people are key to our community and key to our economy in the future. So,
yeah. There is a lot of that. And I just want to remind everybody, if there's at any point in time you have a question for any of our panelists or anything, just please put it in the chat, and we'll work hard to get it answered. So at any point in time, if there's something, a comment, I know that that we've had somebody who said that they are a Dover school parent, and they have also noticed a lot of new participation in school activities in a very different year. So I think that's just the gold stuff that I think that we have to reinforce. And, I had a friend of mine, his father always used to say, it doesn't matter where you go, you bring your own hell with you. Right. Well, I think to a degree, I don't think he's incorrect, but sometimes I think when people come up here, they came up here for a reason. They came up here because they were frightened, and we were safe. I can't tell you how many people that I talked to in March, April, May of 2020 that were just saying, like, is there any place for me to stay up there? I can't, I'm just tired of living on top of people. I have cousins in Long Island, and one of them called me on a FaceTime, and he said, I just want to get it already and just get it over with, because I know it's coming here and doing that. And I get that a lot of people were driven up here because of that. But, again, it's a target rich resource environment right now. And I think that there's ways that we should look at that. And I know that if you travel anywhere around here on a cell phone call, that you probably are going to have to redial at some point in time. And if this new influx of people can come in and sort of improve that, I think that that's a positive thing. I mean, you can agree or disagree. I'm
Well, yeah, Peter, I was just going to add, and that doesn't always have to be the case. I think we all often make fun of, but now we're going to invest $300 million into broadband. So someday
right.
quite quickly, there won't be that type of Vermont. So imagine a Vermont which has all the small town charm that we all love about Vermont, but also has the amenities for potential new businesses or younger Vermonter who can, COVID also provided many of our restaurants and our service industry an opportunity to level up to the standards of, I think, the rest of America. And that involved takeout and order out and a robust website and a shopping cart feature. And so as we go back in the sense that COVID will end, the mask mandate stopped today, we also have to challenge ourselves that some of that shouldn't go back. Our restaurant should still be able to do takeout. They should still be, I should be able to go as a young Vermonter to the website and order either in person, on a telephone, or through an app, or through a text message. Those things shouldn't leave us either. So again, another encouragement that, find the sweet spots in this trial, in this challenge that we all, we ramped up and got better at as Vermonters, and broadband's coming, and eventually we should all work on cell service too.
Right. So a couple of questions have come into the chat, and they're really good questions. So I want to kind of get to them. Stephanie Bonham from the Downtown Business Alliance here in Brattleboro is curious, and maybe Gretchen, I don't know. I guess we can point this at Gretchen and Matt, but can any of you speak to the programs that you're working on to welcome, to get and enroll people into our communities?
So sure. We have a downtown organization called Wilmington Works. So Meg Staloff is the project coordinator there, and her and I work, quite a bit together. And we also have an economic development committee. We started a welcome wagon, and we created these small postcards that we would mail to newcomers. We also placed them with real estate people and at the Chamber of Commerce, those kind of things. And what the postcard said, it really directed them to a website, to the Wilmington Works website. We had a newcomers page, and then on it just had a wealth of information about where to sign up for newsletter for Wilmington Works, for the town of Wilmington, et cetera, et cetera. So that was really, it was really cool. And what we did is, in order to get those addresses, was we took the property transfers from the town clerk's office and just went through them. And just a little data here is that we had about 225 property transfers since the beginning of May of last year, which is a really significant number, because normally, we're around the 75 mark, I believe. And a lot of those, 23 of those were like land purchases. Some, very few, were primary residents. But, keeping in the same mode, the majority were secondary. But with this data, you have to kind of like take a step back a little bit, so are some of these listing, the secondary home, and they were waiting to sell their primary home in another state. So they might become primary residents. So that's a little wonky. And then again, primary, we did have some primary move to secondary homes from the sale. So it's a little, you got to take it with a grain of salt a little bit. But a little bit back to the welcome wagon that we created. We also had a virtual happy hour once a month, and it was through the winter months, and it was well attended in the very beginning, but it kind of trailed off. But it was really interesting, kind of, things we would, pose a question, and then it was an opportunity for those newcomers to ask questions. And it was questions like, where's a good place to walk my dog? Where can I find fresh cranberries to make my cranberry sauce for Thanksgiving? Just small, unique questions that people just didn't know where to go to, to take advantage of the opportunities. So, and a little bit on volunteerism, I just want to say that there was, we did or Wilmington Works actually did, they got a AARP grant for Winter Place. And it was a walking, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing area on this field in the downtown Wilmington. And we did pick up a volunteer that was a newcomer, and she got to meet, new people within this. So, so there's opportunity out there. So
that's on an organizational, a municipal level, but on a chamber level, Matt, anything that you guys are doing that kind of welcomes and makes these people feel like they've arrived?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's added a whole nother prong to the chamber world. And anybody on the call probably knows chambers are this amorphous. They sometimes throw events. They are small business. They might be community development. There are a lot of things, and then we add retention and recruitment to that as well, which I like a lot of things on my plate, and I love the passion behind those things. People on the call who know me probably know this, and my staff and board do know as well, that for me, we have to start with the mindset and the philosophy we want to have. We could put out all the programs we want, and I think why our state-to-stay program has been quite successful, and some other programs we've done is because we have a mindset of kind of high touch, welcoming, engaged, and experiential. And so before we even do one of the programs, it may mean we have a one-on-one call with people. It means we're giving out our cell phone number so they can text us, because that might be their more comfortable way to communicate. It means we're having that monthly Friday call for our state-to-stay when we're in COVID, and you can hop on any of the Friday calls. Doesn't matter if you come to 5 of them, if you're going to learn more about Vermont. And then we do, I think Gretchen had mentioned the postcard afterwards. It's just all these, we have to remember that Vermont has this tremendous brand, as small and as tucked in the corner of the United States as it is. Vermont is well known across the country, and it is part of that warmth and charm. And so we have to embody that and kind of humanize that too. People are coming here and experiencing Vermont for the first time. And we have to be able to say, absolutely, everything you read about, everything you think about, you think of Irving Berlin, that's us. Yep, that's us. We love all that stuff. So we start with the philosophy. I mentioned the state-to-stay program. We also have a young professional group here, the Shire's Young Professionals throughout Bennington County. They've been tremendous help for us. And they do some of the back end of our Welcome Wagon. We also go through the Vermont Welcome Wagon project with our partners over in Wyndham. And a lot of that is a lot of young people, young Vermonters who have been here that want to connect with new young Vermonters. And so that both of those have been quite well received. And the Welcome Wagon is just this really simple concept. I feel like a broken record sometimes. It's just a bunch of volunteers that have been living in Vermont for a while and know who the best plumber is and the best electrician, and where to get the best coffee, and what parks like dogs and what parks don't like dogs. And those people connect with new people. And they can do it via Zoom. They can do it on a phone call. They can take them out to grab a beer. They can grab a coffee. Kind of the whole thing is open to their interpretation, albeit COVID. But as we relieve those restrictions, I think we're going to see a lot more older Vermonters, veteran Vermonters, well-seasoned Vermonters, being able to connect with these people and say, hey, let me take you to the farmer's market this weekend. Let's just, it's important for when people move here, that one of the one things that we know, and I'm glad Gretchen brought up volunteerism, it's about finding 5 friends. You know, you are going to build deeper roots. You aren't going to leave as quickly if you know you're going to disappoint your neighbor over there because you guys play pool every Wednesday. So we're trying to kind of systematize or create a way that we jump ahead and we make those connections for you. And so if you meet 5 new people in Vermont in your first year, you're going to be less likely to move out of Vermont, and they're going to be able to show you the ins and outs of your community. So that's what we're working on. And the last part I'll mention with that are the partners. We work with Vermont SBC, SBDC. We work with our downtown program. We work with our industrial corporation and our regional commission. I mean, part of it is the mosaic or the almost the safety net that if you do move to Bennington, or you do move to Manchester, or you do move to Wilmington, there are these partners that, you know, can connect you with education, connect you with childcare. And we find this in stay to stay a lot. Around the country, we had people from California, Mexico, and Colombia last week, our first Friday. They haven't experienced this anywhere else in the United States. And it's not complicated. It's about being a human being and connecting one-to-one and saying, hey, you're in special education and you need to find a job and you want to move out of Mexico. Let me connect you with these 3 people in our school system. And it's quite simple. And yet it's interesting to hear that nobody else has caught on to our secret sauce yet. And our secret sauce is being human. So kudos to Vermont and kudos to those partners, both on this panel and I know throughout the counties that are working like this, because it is the magic sauce of Vermont for sure.
So Bill, is there anything that's being done on a school level that might be a little bit more welcoming for new students and parents?
Just listening to my colleagues speak, I think what comes to my mind is that there's a lot of things that we're already doing in schools that are unbelievably welcoming and attractive, but we probably need to do a better job of telling people about them. I mean, we have unbelievably small classrooms. So in many other states, you're going to have to pay a private tuition to get that. We have a whole diaspora ecosystem of schools. We have really small schools, we have medium-sized schools, we have small, private, independent middle schools and high schools. We have, you know, the ivy growing on the brick in Manchester at Burn Burton. You got a comprehensive high school in Brattleboro. You got the 1950s and 60s down in Wilmington. I mean, you can have a little bit of everything, and we don't ever promote that. We just kind of accept, oh, that's the norm. In Dover, their little elementary school with 120 kids is the first international baccalaureate school in the history of Vermont. I mean, those are the things you find across the globe. So when Matt and Gretchen are talking about creating things that are welcoming, I'm thinking about the school system. They already exist, but what we have to do is connect with the Gretchens and the Matts so that we can share those things. And then another thing is we practice being welcoming and practice being inclusive all the time in schools. I mean, that's our job. Every year we get 20% new students. And so we practice how to be welcoming, how to integrate new kids. We are preparing for kids that come from all different races and religions and family environments. And so that's something we're really good at. And we just need to make sure that we are connecting with the people that are connecting that want to come. Because that's what's sticky. When you are connected to something as intense as a school, that is a very sticky proposition for staying.
Well, which brings us to, we do have a few other things in the chat that I want to get to, because they're really good points and I'd love to get everybody's opinion on it. Beth has put in here that there's been a lot of discussion over the last couple of days about how newcomers / second homeowners are affecting the real estate market for existing residents, and what are your thoughts on that? A case in point, I was scrolling through my social media feed the other day, and there was an apartment in Brattleboro that was being listed for a ridiculous amount of $2,500 a month, and I think the social media post went so far as to blame the people that could come in and pay the $2,500 a month, forgetting that it was likely a Vermonter that set that price. So it was an interesting thing. You know, they're in turn blaming the new people for coming here because they are able to pay that, and it is a little bit of a problem. So I'm curious as to what you all think about that issue, and I guess I can lob that into any one of you.
Yeah, so Beth, I appreciate the question because I have done a little bit of thought on this. So a couple of things. If you are already living here, don't think about moving right now. Stay where you are. You know, the other piece of this is that you know, again, I'm going to give my age away here. I think I just turned 58. So, you know, history does repeat itself. You know, like when Mount Snow and Haystack were being developed, you know, we had this same crises where we had such a shortage of housing. And, you know, how do we get through that? It's not an answer that in a year, this is going to be, you know, it will be fine. It's not going to be. It's going to take a long time to redevelop, you know, bring back, you know, like prices go high, then they go low, and then they go high. And, you know, so it's this shift that keeps happening. How long we're going to be in it, I don't know. But yeah, I have a fear, you know, am I going to still be able to work and maintain my home here? You know, I'm hopeful in that. I'm an optimist, and, you know, and again, I go back to that history repeats itself.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
And we've seen this boom before, so I agree. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we have a joke, an inside joke among the leaders who are working so hard to turn the economy around since the recession. Remember that Vermont barely, if ever, got out of the last recession we were in, especially in Bennington County. I won't speak for Windham County, but Bennington County was still crawling out in 2015-16. And our ongoing joke is we're going to build this awesome place and people are going to complain about the traffic.
Right.
You know, it's a one horse town, and there's complaints that nobody's walking into their storefronts. You know, there's all these housings that are dilapidated. There's all this property that isn't getting mowed. And sure enough, you know, maybe 10 years later, here we are, and we're going to be complaining that there's too many customers in our shops, and I have to go to work early to do those things, and there's not enough housing, and there's that. So, you know, I think the one maybe silver lining in some of that is remember that and this is what we're seeing in Bennington, at least, as new homeowners are moving here, so are new investors. And so we look at the development of the Putnam project, which was actually a consortium of already leaders in Bennington saying we need to stop the depression of our downtown. We need to band together and produce catalytic leadership. And what I mean by catalytic leadership is let's put a flag here at the Putnam project and see how far that spreads and gives permission to other peoples to invest in downtown. And we've just seen the purchase of the former middle school Ben High building, and that's being turned into condominiums. We see the work of Shires Housing, both out in North Bennington and up through the county, but also we look at, you know, what was just purchased at the Brush building, and that's going to start to be housing. I think there needs to be a balance of both new housing and remediation of what we do have. We have some gorgeous buildings. We heard that again on a call. I think it was on the lunch yesterday, that these people from all around the world have started to come to Vermont, and they've never seen houses as beautiful. They said we've only seen them in pictures from the places that we've come from. So I think we also have to take care of our legacy and what we have in the past, which is some of that housing stock, but be ready to build new housing too. So all that to say that I think some of the silver lining is yes, we have new people coming. Yes, there's some inflation in the housing market right now. And yes, we also have investors coming that are going to build those condominiums that maybe the millennials and Gen Z are going to be more attracted to than maybe taking care of an old house with character. But that, leaves room for the Xers and boomers that love farmhouses. And we've seen that in the State of State program a lot. They're looking for that kind of, Diane Keaton farmhouse. They're constantly looking for. So it's exciting. And I think let's just, we're early into the post-COVID world here, and let's be a little patient with people.
So Jessica Lee has just posed a question, and Matt, I'll fire it at you, since you used the word balance about 4 or 5 times in your last statement. How are we balancing welcoming newcomers and continuing to give the attention to those who already live here? And it's an age-old argument, right? I mean, if you have a cell provider that you've used for 100 years, what do they do to keep you? They always give somebody else the first month's free. What are we doing for those newcomers versus the people that have already been here, who've already built these communities?
Yeah, so I mean, the bigger picture is, remember that we're all paying a lot because there aren't enough Vermonters here to pay for all the things we need in 2021. So one of the bigger ideas is, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so the more Vermonters we move here, as Governor Scott has talked about, which has been his missive for the last 6 years, the less we'll be paying in property tax and school tax and things like that, because there's more people sharing the burden. And so long as we don't welcome those people, that we can look. I often remind us that we started as isolationist state. We only became a democratic blue state in the 60s. Ever before then, we were the other state, and we were quite isolationist all the way up through both the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, and on into the 1900s. So Vermont, go back to my original statement. Vermont has a choice to make. Vermont can either be welcoming or it doesn't have to be welcoming, and there are consequences to both of those. So I would encourage us, just knowing, coming from my team building background, to be inclusive instead of exclusive, and to pull more in, because those, we've talked about it, those affluent, smart people, they'll help us figure this out.
Yeah.
They'll help us figure out how to do that sort of thing. I don't know if that question was getting to like the $10,000 to have new Vermonters move here, and where's my $10,000?
Where is my $10,000, Matt?
Where's my $10,000?
Where's my $10,000?
Yeah, and remember, these are, how do I want to frame it? You bought a piece of chocolate last week and there wasn't the sale. And now this week, the chocolate shop is having a sale. So do all the old customers come back in the chocolate shop and say, hey, how dare you? It doesn't really work that way. What we're trying to do is increase the density of Vermont so that we all live a better life in Vermont. And I think some of those programs will probably even become obsolete, because now we have so many people banging down the door of Vermont. So it'll be interesting to watch.
So I want to dial back, because Tim put something in a little earlier that I want to get to, and it's a really good point, and it's something that I've often thought about, and I'm going to frame this in a way of just saying, you do right by somebody, maybe they tell one person. You do wrong by somebody, they tell 10. Right. I mean, we all know that, right? And so Tim writes, it's easier for me to think about ways to welcome newcomers and harder to think about ways to reduce the go away experiences. But one go away home sticky note on a door may outweigh 10 welcome messages. And that's exactly the ratio I just talked about. What are the thoughts to reducing the go away messages in addition to critically important positive welcoming messages? Bill, is there anything that school systems are doing to kind of address that?
Well, I mean, we are by nature a positive community, and so anything that happens that is a negative environment. So let's imagine a new family comes and there's a problem at school, or there's a problem in the community. We're going to react to that just like we would if you had lived in the community forever. And we're going to treat you fairly, and we're going to treat you ethically, and we're going to treat you with empathy. And so any negative interactions, we overcome them by just being who we are.
Right.
Which I totally understand the point of all these negative things are going to have more impact than the positive things. But I think Matt made an excellent point that, look, we've got to choose a direction here. We have the space and we have the need to grow. And quite frankly, diversity and inclusion helps us all. It gives you new perspective. It gives you new ways to look at ideas. It gives new ways to solve problems. And it allows growth for everybody. So maybe I'm being naive, but yes, we're going to have some negative interactions, but I think we stay on the track of positive and we just keep humming that tune. And I think it's just going to outweigh it in the end, but it's got to be consistent. It cannot be just, okay, COVID's here, we're going to be positive. As Matt said, Vermonters are cool people. They're nice.
Yeah.
So we just got to keep letting people know who we are and keep making that happen on a consistent basis. I think that is the key.
So I think Bill comes at it from a unique perspective where Bill has the school systems, and the school systems will always be Switzerland, right? And Gretchen and Matt desperately want to be Switzerland, but that doesn't necessarily always flesh out that way. I mean, Gretchen, can you speak to that at all? I mean, is there a way to reduce that go away message, or is it just that a message that we have to keep reinforcing?
Yeah, it is a message that we have to keep reinforcing, but I'll tell you, it all starts with, one person, and, being an unofficial ambassador. And, we need to keep pushing this message out and sharing this amongst our, committees and our, circles that, we really need to be that ambassador, that when you're on a dirt road and you're driving, wave to that person, put a smile on, just be kind, just be nice. And, trying, the Facebook messages, some of them are just really horrible. So you got to try to, instead of responding to those because they're getting more views, you got to put up your own post, and you do have to be that ambassador. Put a smile on your face, say hello to somebody that you don't recognize. It's just, that is the value, and that's the important piece that will get us into this next stage, I hope. So
A little wave, it's not asking a lot.
I think,
go ahead, Matt. I just have one other thing to share.
I was just going to say, I think what Gretchen touches upon is that what I like to call like the arc of goodness. It is not going to be won by either's and ors. Like, it was either the Post-its or not the Post-its, and the Post-its, because they're more negative, are always going to win because they're fear mongering. I think we're on an arc, and the people on this call just have to know that, if you're a welcoming person and you're trying your best, you're on the good side of that arc. But that arc is long, as we've heard many famous leaders mention that arc of justice and goodness, and it is not it's not won by one day, a bad day or a good day. It's just won by us continually moving that arc forward. And I think that's everybody's job on this call. But that's, Gretchen, when you're talking about that, it reminds me of like, look, we have to keep doing the good work.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to share one other quick thing about Facebook. Last September, there was a local person that posted on Facebook, "Won't you be my neighbor?" And it's a really long thing about living in Vermont. And, it's going to take you a little bit to get used to us, but you will eventually, especially when you're in a crisis. Somebody's going to bring food to your door. Somebody's going to run a fundraiser for you, or, just the general, you're going to be walking up the street, your friend's making maple syrup. They're going to invite you in to, have a sample of the syrup. And it's just so cool. And it ends with something like, you are as close to heaven as you are going to be on this planet by living in Vermont. And, I just think, oh, and he did talk about weather too, we argue about how much snow we're going to get, and, that kind of thing. So it was a really cool, very Vermont piece that was really good, really well done. And
So
he
we
got a
got
lot
our,
of likes.
oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, look, I think people do like to gravitate towards, I can do something political on social media. And whenever you do that, you're just inviting people to be confrontational with you. Even the people that you don't think are confrontational, they will just become confrontational. So, but if you put a picture of your dog doing something cute on it, like everybody will just, oh, I like that. That's safe. I don't even have to think about that. It's just a picture of a cute dog. This one is directed directly at Matt from Gail Mann from the fine town of Londonderry, and she is saying that as they're starting to plan welcoming packages that would include coupons, discounts from local businesses, plus some Vermont original products. She liked the idea that you proposed with organizing local businesses to provide coupons and discounts. Have you done anything like that in these packages? Are there any opinions as to how to approach it person to person? How are you doing it?
Yeah. Well, I'll go back to one of my favorite words, which is balance. And I think that it's a balance between kind of those extrinsic motivators like coupons and $10,000 cash grabs and things like that, and the intrinsic motivators, which is a little bit more of the human to human touch, which is let's motivate you to live here because it makes you feel better, because the air is cleaner and you're passionate about going fishing in the Battenkill. So I think we're always trying to balance those two things, especially as, hopefully a Chamber of Commerce, we're good at marketing and sales and getting people to buy into things. So, so we're using some of those techniques too. In terms of coupons and those types of things, not directly with Stay to Stay or welcoming. We did some of that with the Restart Marketing grants here in Bennington and throughout the region, actually, during the last, I think it was November and December, when the ACCD released a bunch of those grants. We did one or two different, basically come and take 20% off if you did this. It's interesting. We were one of those, we were trying to do a bucket list if people were interested to come to southwestern Vermont, and if they filled out the bucket list and filled out the form, then we'd give them 25% off their lodging stay at these select groups. I think we had one person take advantage of that. So it's really it's a tough go out at it. I don't think coupons are bad. And I know that like Manchester Designer Outlet does a booklet every season. So bringing in partners is good. Bringing in partners is helpful. I would also, maybe from putting more of my Chamber of Commerce hat on, say, be careful about asking your small businesses to make yet another sacrifice. That we have to be really sensitive. They are constantly hit up for donations. And then during COVID, remember, our attractions and our lodging and our restaurants were the hardest hit. And so, you can just see the storm forming again where, okay, now can you take 25% off pizza if you give us a coupon? And I would just be sensitive to that. Some of them love that opportunity. It's some like free marketing, and anybody knows that if you offer a coupon, they come into the shop and they buy more than the coupon was ever worth in the first place. But just be sensitive with your small businesses. They are coming out of a storm, and many of them didn't stop. And I say that because I think some people had like March and June, you just couldn't go to work, so you just stopped and you didn't work. Well, there's a lot of people out there that just kept working. And so they didn't get to repair their house. They didn't, go to Home Depot 5 times a day. They just kept working. And so be sensitive to that. I hope that answers some of the question. I think that it's always a good idea. It's always a nice little bait, or, kind of the carrot to get people to participate. But I think go more of the intrinsic route, which is like for us, we had a couple stayers and new Vermonters participate in our Garlic Town last year. And they were so much more touched by sitting next to somebody, showing people around town and getting them into part of our cloves and introducing them to vendors or picking up trash. They were more touched by that than they would have ever been by 10% off a pizza. Again, we built the intrinsic motivation. They felt like they were giving back to the community that already gave to them. So look for that in your welcoming process, whether it's packages, packets, interviews, cocktail hours. Look for that in your process as well.
So I just want to be conscious of everybody's time. We've got about 4 minutes left to go here before we've got to move on to the next thing. And I think it's been a really good and healthy conversation. One of the and if coupons are part of the thing that folks are wanting to do, this is an idea that I did years and years ago. You come up with a coupon calendar. So like right now, people are hurting, as Matt suggested, and people are just really just trying to pull in what they can. And maybe you can create a calendar that each month has a different coupon that can be put in a welcome package. Sometimes that's just a quick idea that maybe towards the end of the year, the restaurant could say, yeah, by then I can do $10 off a dinner, something along those lines. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I just wanted to add, put a stick in there or a comment in there that what you don't think about is the management that takes, and the management do coupon programs and the management. And I think those Restart Marketing grants were a good start there. But I'm thinking of BDCC, the Chamber, BCRC in Bennington. It takes grants, funding, whatever. And sometimes we don't think about that. We just think the Chamber exists and it's our job to go get membership, right? So we don't get any tax dollars in any way. So we're just supposed to do those things. And I just want to encourage people, as you talk to your legislators, as you talk to the administration, as you look at your downtown programs and your chambers and your industrial corporations, it takes money to make money. So when we look at Stay to Stay, and when we look at the Vermont Welcome Wagon Project, and when we look at those types of things, there's people laboring all day long to make those happen. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of background work that's going on too, that obviously we don't flaunt a whole lot, but I'll take this opportunity in front of all of you to flaunt it.
Yeah, I think it's good. And I think that everybody on this panel comes from a slightly different community. And that means that there are always people in there that can answer these questions, that can help, that can offer direction. Again, as we begin to take a look at the influx of new people that are coming in and how to tap into those resources, I think is a positive thing. And I've always believed going to your downtown business organizations, Wilmington Works, the Downtown Business Alliance, all of those organizations are people who know and who are resource heavy, or if they don't have the resources, they know the people that do. So I would encourage you all to kind of lean on those resources, school systems, municipalities, ask questions of your town clerk, ask, Matt, all the chambers have just great resources. But I guess, what advice would you give other communities on how to advocate for their newcomers and how to get involved ASAP? Keeping in mind, like, let's just give it like 30 seconds for each. Bill, go.
I would connect to the school principals in your area. They will be huge advocates to assist you in any kind of recruitment and retention. They practice being welcoming, and they want more students and families. I think they're an untapped resource. Great.
Matt.
Volunteerism.
All right, there we go. I like it. Gretchen, you've got to do it in a half a word now if you want to win.
And I can't do it. Go to your town clerk, look up those PTRs, the property transfers, get a list going, and reach out to those newcomers. That's the way to do it. And smile and be kind.
Smile and wave. It takes zero effort. Takes what's that there? It takes far less muscles to smile than it does to frown, right? So let's do a little bit more of that. I think it's been a great conversation. Bill, Matt, and Gretchen, thank you for being on the panel today. Really appreciated your input. Take a quick moment to thank our sponsors once again, Green Mountain Power and the Vermont Electric Power Company, that have provided us this third and final lunchtime series. Thanks, guys, and thanks to everybody who tuned in today.
Have a good weekend. Thank you, Peter.
All right.
Take care,
guys.
See everyone at 2.